Hi guys, welcome to Truth Talkin' Thursday. This is Jim. I'm Jane. Jim and I were just kind of chatting a little bit here about, what did you call it? Our civil duties?
Our civil responsibilities.
Civil responsibilities. What constitutes a civil responsibility? And I kind of went off, the other direction as far as, I guess in a very basic way, we get into trouble sometimes by sticking our noses in people's business that we should not stick our noses in. You can't, not all circumstances and situations are measured by the same yardstick. They don't all require the same thing, and all situations and circumstances require, first, a thought process. It requires you to think for yourself. We get ourselves into trouble, I would say mostly by having an opinion about something and feeling so strongly about it, whether it be for the purpose of helping somebody, you thinking you're going to help somebody, or because the opinion has been formed by what you've been through, so you feel strongly about it and have like maybe a very strong conviction about it.
Yeah, no, it's...
But when to open your mouth and when to shut your mouth.
Or should I?
Is kind of like what we were discussing. So do you have any guidelines on that you use for yourself?
I always do. It's
You always what? You always open your mouth?
whether it's a good idea or not, I always have an opinion, I'm an Irishman.
Having an opinion isn't the issue.
What can I tell you? No, I like what you said. I think it was really important, and you said it really nicely, and I think that kind of sums up the issue in a nice way in the first 2 minutes of this little thing here. So nicely done. What's next?
No, no, you're not getting off that easy.
But you're right. Do we, number one, do we have the right to impose our belief systems on some other people, on somebody else, just because we have a strong belief about it ourselves? And that whole civic responsibility stuff gets tangled up in those belief systems and all that, so that we talk ourselves into, well, I'm right, he's not, and that's that, so I'm going to sort this out. Because that's my civic responsibility. My civic duty is to report that kind of stuff, or to make sure that doesn't continue. It's like somebody operating a little business in the backyard, and he's got a little machine shop there, and so he doesn't have a license to be in business and all that kind of stuff, but the neighborhood knows that he's running a little business, cash under the table, for folks to come and get their lawnmowers fixed. Is it our civic responsibility to turn him in because he's illegally operating a little business in his backyard?
I understand what you're saying, and it is a super fine line. But on the flip side of that coin, yes, he's cheaper, but he also hasn't taken the risks that the big guys have either. And, he doesn't have the insurance and the overhead of the building and the electricity and the employees, and he doesn't have all of that. So of course he's cheaper. That doesn't mean he does a better job necessarily.
No, but if he doesn't do a better job, if he's not doing as good a job, then people are going to go where they're going to get the better job done, and they'll pay the extra money.
Correct.
Do I have a civic responsibility to stick my nose in and report this guy? Or am I just jealous of Eddie because he's got a few bucks in his pocket and he's doing okay and he's happy with what he's doing?
Well, you know what kind of bugs me about that, in all honesty?
Go ahead.
I feel like the worst part of that is that we're not consistent in who we report. It's almost like we pick and choose where we're going to have this holier than thou attitude with the civic responsibilities that we feel. We don't just have it right across the board. If you're going to have an attitude that you have a civic duty and a civic responsibility, then you better be consistent and apply it to everything, not just, Eddie and his backyard mechanic, or, the dog owner that happens to own a pit bull that you don't like. That's not right.
No, and it often, not always, but it often seems to be the people that are the most easygoing, or seem to be the happiest, or the most content, or having the most fun, or just enjoying life, or they're doing a little something extra. Maybe they're taking that extra pocket money and putting it into a jar in the house for their kids' education. Who knows what it's all about? But it always not always, we have to be careful of absolutes, but it's often somebody who seems to have their stuff together, and they're just kind of cruising along, and they're doing okay, and they're not bothering anybody, and they're not harming anybody, and
or it's somebody that has actually had something, well, rather trying or horrific happen to them, and they're finally getting back on their
starting
feet.
to get back together again.
And
yeah.
because they're getting back together,
Yeah.
somebody decides they're going to have an issue with that.
Yeah, well, they slap them down. I'm not having a good time, and
Neither
you're
are
not
you.
going to have a good time either. You know, the heck with that. I mean, it would be different if he was running the lawnmower. It's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, tuning up a lawnmower and stuff, and he's waking up. That's a little different story. Then what he's doing directly impacts on the quality of my life. Well, that's a little different story at that point.
True, and I agree with that, and I'm sure I probably don't speak up as I ought to in some of those ways, but there's also the flip side of that coin. What do you do that makes somebody else's life not so great either? Are you aware of the things that you do that directly affect somebody that maybe they're putting up with?
And I'm probably not aware of it. And so if it's a big deal, then come over and tell me about it. But, tell me about it one time. Don't be calling the by-law enforcement officer.
So maybe that's a basis for it. Your civic responsibility kicks in if something directly affects you.
Well, it would certainly be one of the criteria that I would use if I was going to do something like that. If a guy's out there and he's got a 6-gun, an air pistol or something, and he's shooting it off at a target, and things are ricocheting all over the place and stuff, that's probably cause for me to call up and say, hey,
probably.
I don't care what time it is.
Probably not something you should just let go.
That's right. So it's using your own judgment, being aware of what goes into you making those kinds of judgments. Were you angry at the time? Were you resentful at the time? Or did you just have a bad day and you decided to pee on somebody's parade? I mean, how did you get to the point where you picked up the phone and turned the guy in? I mean, so
did you have an experience? Did you have an experience that day or recently with someone that the situation that occurred was triggered the same feelings in you, and you just lost it because you thought you could get a reaction or put somebody else in their place?
Or I'm going to get even.
Yeah.
I'm going to even up the score sheet here a little bit.
Yeah.
That guy pissed me off, so I'm going to go and turn him in. There.
Yeah.
What do you think of me now, cowboy?
Yeah. How do you like me now?
How do you like me now?
Yeah.
So I mean, we have to be aware of our own biases, and we have to be aware of our own sensibilities. But I think far too many people stick their noses into other people's business when they really don't have a call to do that.
I think I agree with that. I think that thinking for yourself first and making sure that what is happening that you're witnessing or seeing affects you before you take any action is important. Yeah. To just search yourself and see why.
Always the balance.
See what's got you worked up. So have a great week.
Thanks for stopping by.